In light of the current circumstances, can we pray Tarawīh in our houses while the Imam is in the masjid or somewhere else and we have a live connection or a live feed via the internet? If the Tarawīh is being broadcast live, can we tune in and can we stand in our own houses and pray as muqtadi? Muqtadi means the one behind the Imam, and take an Imam that is not physically in front of us. There is no question that mainstream traditional fiqh would never allow this. And the reasons for this are self-evident and obvious. By definition, what does the word jama'ah mean? The word jama'ah means a congregation. The word jama'ah means physically coming together. And that is why, by unanimous consensus, of the four schools, I should say, the people that are standing far apart cannot be considered to be one jama'ah. Now, what constitutes far apart? What constitutes the maximum distance between the muqtadi? The muqtadi is the one who's behind the Imam and the Imam. What is the maximum distance? Well, the different madhabs have different, connotations in this regard. The Maliki madhab says that, there's no problem if there's a river or a road between the sufuf and there's a large breaker or something, and there's some still sense of connection. Even if there's a river or a road between them, no problem. Imam al-Kasani, in his famous book Bada'i' al-Sana'ah, which is a Hanafi book, one of the earliest Hanafi books, he says that the Hanafi position is that if there's a gap of 2 rows, then the jama'ah is broken. So, roughly 10 feet or so. Don't quote me on the 10 feet, but basically 2 rows, well, more than 10 feet if you want. So, if there's that much of a distance, it is broken. The Hanbalis, in their mashhur position, they said that one should be within visual distance of the Imam. And Ibn Qudamah says that even if you're not visual, but at least you can hear or see one of the rows. So even if it's a huge jama'ah and you cannot see the Imam, but wherever you are, you can see a row, and that row is visible, you can hear them, then you can be connected. So the point is, each of these madhabs is kind of sort of in its own way, they're saying there's got to be a reasonable distance, and each one of them has a different opinion about what exactly is reasonable. Now, when loudspeakers were introduced, and this is back in the 50s and 60s. So some of our scholars then did become a little bit more, lax, that okay, even if you cannot see the Imam, but still it is one connected group. And again, there was some, controversy over what constitutes connected and what is reasonable. But still, nobody said that just because you can hear the Imam very, very far away, you can still pray with the jama'ah. There has to be some sense of connectivity. When live TV broadcast was introduced, and this is in the Haramain, they began broadcasting Tarawīh prayers live in the 1980s. This was when they began broadcasting for the very first time in the mid-1980s. They started the Saudi Arabian television, they started broadcasting. I'm not saying other countries, I'm talking about Mecca and Medina. I don't know other countries. Mecca and Medina was in the mid to early 80s. They began broadcasting the live transmission. And so the people began asking that if we're in the same time zone, and we are in the Mecca time zone. People in Jeddah are 2 minutes apart. It's in the same time zone. Like when the Tarawih starts, they can pray. The people of Mecca that are not coming to the Haram. So they began asking the senior scholars. And so the Council of Senior Scholars, the Hay'at Kibar al-Ulama, was asked a question that can we tune in to the live television broadcast on Saudi national television if we are in the same time zone? Obviously, nobody's saying if you're in Timbuktu, then you can do that. No, we mean something within the same time zone from Mecca, that can we pray? And the Council of Senior Scholars, they said that it is not permissible by unanimous consensus because it would not constitute a jama'ah. You're not physically in the vicinity of the haram. And that's something that they said is not allowed. And that's definitely standard traditional interpretation. Now, having said that, given the current circumstances that we are facing, there is no question that fiqh does allow, and this is something everybody knows, fine-tuning if the conditions are met and if the sharia allows for it. So the question is, can we, in light of current circumstances, rethink through this issue of jama'ah? Can we, in the spirit of having Tarawīh prayers, in the spirit of most people are not going to be praying the proper prayers anyway, and because we're not having, for the first time in Islamic history, masajid across the globe were shut down, we're not going to be having congregations. So in light of these extenuating circumstances, can we rethink through this issue and temporarily, not permanently, just in light of this year maybe even, just allow for a jama'ah that is online or virtual? And I have been following many people across the globe, many scholars I look up to, many fiqh councils, and hearing from them what they are saying. And a number of scholars have allowed this. Most famously, yesterday, Shaykh Muhammad Hassan Waladadu, one of the great allamas in every sense of the term alive, Shaykh Dadu, he did give a very explicit fatwa in which he said that it is permissible, and he said that it is permissible only in light of current circumstances, only as an exception to keep the spirit alive. And he says this is a nazila issue, or it's an issue that basically we're giving in light of today's extenuating circumstance. And there are some other small voices as well. However, and I'm just saying this for information, however, that having been said, please be aware that as far as I know, up until today that I'm giving you this lecture, as far as I know, no fiqh council in any part of the world, as far as I know, has allowed online jama'ah. Not the European Council, not the American Muslim Jurists Association, not the Fiqh Council of North America that I sit upon, not any of the fiqh councils that are the Majma' al-Fiqhi and others that are senior councils around the globe. None of them have allowed this, and they have all said that, yes, true, at times we rethink through fiqh and we can fine-tune, but their perspective is having a jama'ah is not a necessity. So why rethink through the concept of a jama'ah when it is not a necessity? We rethink through when a necessity is being infringed, when something that is haram or halal, when a very big thing. As for Tarawīh, if you pray at home, what's the big deal? If you pray by yourself, what's the big deal? Why do we have to rethink? That's their philosophy. And because of this, and personally, and I have said this many, many times, that I don't feel comfortable personally to give any position or fatwa that is unique. I'd never have in my life given any position that is uniquely my own in fiqh issues. In some areas of Islam is different, but definitely in fiqh, I do not consider myself to be, a'udhu billah, mujtahid mutlaq. I always follow those whom I look up to, and especially for our times, I have said this multiple times, I personally prioritize the fiqh councils for modern issues. And I have 4 or 5 fiqh councils that I look up to, and I myself am a member of one of them, the Fiqh Council of North America. The reason why I prefer councils is because you have multiple minds coming together. It's not just one. And you have the Majma' al-Fiqhi, you have the Majma' al-Rabit al-Alam, you have multiple that are global, and then you have regional. You have the European Fiqh Council that I personally look up to immensely, and it has a number of people that are good friends and colleagues of mine, and they're on that council. Here in America, the American Muslim Jurists Association, I know almost everybody personally. I attend many times as well. And the Fiqh Council, of course, I'm on it. And these are the councils that are European and Western. These 3 in particular. I'm not saying there are not others, there are others as well. But to me personally, these are the ones that I'm in particular very well connected with, and I do look up to for Western fatwa. And none of these councils have as of yet allowed this. And therefore, even if a few handful of scholars whom I personally know and admire have allowed it, I cannot find myself siding with them personally. If somebody wishes to follow, that's their business. I cannot encourage it. And I find myself hesitant to open this door, and I'm going to stick with what the majority have said in this regard, and that means that jama'ahs cannot take place when you are miles and miles away from the Imam. There has to be physical proximity, and this is the position that I personally hold up until now. Now, if this were to change and some fiqh councils were to change their position, perhaps I might change as well, because I understand where Shaykh Waladadu and others are coming from, and I see the perspective, and at one level I am sympathetic. At the same time, I am cautious, and I want to stick with those that are more senior to me and also more in quantity. Not saying that Shaykh Dr is definitely senior to many of us and he alone is like an ummah of ulama, but that's a different story altogether. So still I would say let's stick with the majority and not open this door. And to the best of my knowledge here in Dallas as well, and I'm on a group as well of local imams and scholars, I don't think any of us as of yet, we have not opened this door, and we will not be opening this door to the best of my knowledge. Now, having said all of that, before I move to my final question, there's going to be 3 questions today. Having said all of that, there is one thing I'd like to put in the footnote. It is a scenario that I do not encourage at all. At the same time, it would be permissible according to the majority of ulama. It doesn't require radical ijtihad. It doesn't require rethinking through the formula. And I would not encourage this, but it is a concession that might be something that certain groups of people can avail themselves to. And that concession is that what is called in the classical books of fiqh, al-iqtida al-suri, or the outer illusion of following the imam, where there is an illusion of following the imam, but it is an illusion you are not following the imam. And when do our classical books discuss this? Well, they discuss it in a number of scenarios of them. Well, let's just say one example, that the imam is somebody that you think you should not be praying behind. Maybe he's a very weird belief or whatnot, and yet you're in a public, or he's the leader, or he's the Muslim Khalifa or something, or whatever it might be, and you think that for whatever reason, and they give some examples that your salah behind him is not valid. So this is called al-iqtida al-suri, where outwardly your ruku' and sujood will be somewhat in sync with the rest of the people, but in reality you are making a niyyah that you're praying your own salah. And if somebody were to look at you, he would assume that you are praying jama'ah, but in reality you are praying your own salah. Now, and again, I'm just putting this as a footnote, so please, my position is don't open this door. However, if somebody really cannot recite the Quran, cannot and will not be praying Tarawīh at all, they're not going to find any khushu', they really want to follow somebody who is broadcasting live, it has to be a live broadcast in the same time zone. One way out could be that they do this iqtida suri, which means they pray their own Tarawīh with their own arkan, and they are doing their own Fatiha and everything they are doing as if they're independent. And they have the live recitation playing as well at the same time, such that when they recite Fatiha, the Imam is reciting Fatiha, then they can be quiet and listen to the recitation of the Imam, because you know it is not a rukun in the nafil salah, according to any of the madhabs, to have another prayer after the Fatiha, another surah after the Fatiha. If you just recite Fatiha, and then if you wanted to recite Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, for example, then every rak'ah, then you listen to the Imam. So, and then when the Imam goes into ruku', you are not following, you're not a muqtadi, you just happen to go into your own ruku'. Then when the Imam goes into qiyam, you just happen to go into qiyam, and you roughly synchronize, but you are praying your own salah independent of your niyyah, is independent, it's not behind the Imam. And you are praying your two, and the Imam is praying his two, but it just so happens that when he's reciting the Quran, you are listening to the Quran, and you are getting, the tilawah done. If this is done in some situations and scenarios, it's nothing wrong with this because you have done the salah, but there is no actual iqtida, you are not actually following the Imam. And again, I would only think that this would be useful if certain groups of people, like somebody does not know anything from the Quran, and they just don't want to recite Surah Al-Ikhlas, all the 20 rak'at or 8 rak'at, or somebody is not going to be motivated unless he's praying behind his regular Imam, and it so happens that his Imam is reciting the Tarawīh or live or whatnot. Otherwise, this is not something that definitely should be encouraged if we're not going to go down the route of virtual salahs, and that's not, as I said, we're not going down that route, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best.